Newly uncovered transcripts reveal an interview between former Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos and a confidential FBI source 2 weeks before the 2016 election. The transcript shows Papadopoulos repeatedly denying that the Trump campaign had ever worked with Russia to hack to release emails stolen from the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign, even though that confidential source kept pressing him to acknowledge exactly that falsehood. It wasn't included, by the way, the transcript of that conversation in the FBI's fraudulent FISA applications against another former Trump campaign advisor, Carter Page. Attorney General William Barr providing an update to the much-anticipated Spygate investigation, or the Russia investigation, if you prefer, at the Justice Department. John Durham working on that assignment of Spygate investigations. The Barr, Attorney General Barr saying that Durham won't be recommending prosecutions. Listen to this.
He is looking to bring to justice people who were engaged in abuses if he can show that they were criminal violations, and that's what the focus is on. My own view is that the evidence shows that we're not dealing with just mistakes or sloppiness. There was something far more troubling here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And if people broke the law, and we can establish that with the evidence, they will be prosecuted.
Well, I think you might say we've heard all of that before, and you would expect it of any decent or honorable attorney general. But the fact is, we've been told there's no guarantee of anybody being brought to justice by that attorney general. There will be no report. And basically, we're being told, don't mind us as we take another year and disappoint everyone who expects the Justice Department to bring justice to those who have perpetrated this great crime against our government and our way of life, in fact. Well, joining us tonight is Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. House Minority Leader, great to have you with us on the show. Let's, if we can, begin with the idea that the Attorney General is really dampening expectations as to who will be brought to justice, if ever. Your thoughts?
Well, justice needs to be brought because they just put through this country through 3 years. Now that we find it was a nightmare, we knew it was a lie the whole time. You now have the facts that those that brought forward went to the FISA court, lied to the judges, and tried to hold this, what I believe was a coup. We came the closest to ever having a coup in this country because President Trump was duly elected just because they did not like him. They tried to misuse their power to change the course of what the people voted for.
Yeah, people, I think, may already be forgetting the number of Democrats in high office, whether it's Adam Schiff, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, whether it's Gerald Nadler, and the list goes on, chairman of powerful committees, lying through their teeth about the president's guilt in all of this. Robert Mueller acting as though he were an avenging angel when in point of fact, he, as an investigator and prosecutor, arguably are the only ones who had committed a crime. Certainly none of the targets of his investigation, including the special counsel investigation, including the President of the United States, were found to have done anything illegal. It's stunning. And
those who were illegal.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, those who did illegal was almost our law enforcement. You watch at the highest echelon.
Right.
They falsified what was said to change the course of history, to go after this president who had done nothing wrong. But you are correct. Adam Schiff, the head of the Intel Committee, you know what he said? He said, remember when he said he had proof, and then he was proven wrong. And then he used the Intel Committee to say there was nothing wrong in the FISA court, and now we know they lied about that as well. These people need to be held accountable for what they had done to this country.
Do you have confidence in Attorney General Barr that he will do just that?
I do, but we should hold his feet to the fire. And you know what? Hold it to the rule of law. I don't want any special treatment on either side. But the way you look at today when you get this report, They knew the president's campaign had nothing to do with Russia. But you've got a director of the FBI, you've got people in the Justice Department who did not uphold the rule of law, who tried to bend it another way to try to change the outcome because they did not like how the election turned out. We can never allow this in this nation, and never in the future to anybody else who holds that office, whether they be Democrat, Republican, or Green Party. We believe in the rule of law, and it was not upheld here. And the only way you make sure that is maintained is that people are held accountable for those actions and those lies.
Well said, Congressman, and I appreciate those words. The Democrats knocking down $250 billion of funding for paycheck protection. Where does this end with what has become a party of both obstruction, a party of hate, and a do-nothing party?
I'll tell you, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi held this up last time. There's 17 million people who are unemployed in the last 3 weeks because of this China communist cover-up of a virus. Now what the Democrats are doing, we have a program that President Trump put forward that helps the small business. This isn't big banks. This is small business. This is keeping people in their job, paying their salary for the next 2 months, paying their rent. These are the restaurants we love that cannot work right now, the mom-and-pop shops, the entrepreneurs we all dream that we could become. And the Democrats said no to this. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi wants to change the election law. She wants to make sure prisoners and illegals get a paycheck. She wants to make sure that the Green New Deal gets implemented, and she's concerned about sanctuary cities. This is not the America I know, and we should not stand up for it. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. This is about the people of this nation, and we should not. This is disgusting what they are doing today.
And the president adamant that every Republican should be fighting this nonsense of mail-in voting across the country. Will you be successful in that opposition?
We have to be. We have watched here in California the fraud that the Democrats had. They go and harvest ballots. We watched that one member couldn't be seated this year because of harvesting of ballots. But what the Democrats want to do, I sat in that room that one Sunday night when we wanted to pass the CARES Act. Nancy Pelosi, the speaker, said no because she wanted to put money into change election law, the Kennedy Center, all the other things that have nothing to do with coronavirus. Remember what the number 3 Democrat, Clyburn, said, the majority whip. He said the coronavirus is a perfect opportunity to restructure government in our vision. That is what Nancy Pelosi believes. Instead of caring for those who are unemployed or the small business owner who can't open up today, instead of giving them that bridge, that liquidity for the next 2 months, she wants to stand in their way to restructure government in her liberal views. You cannot create what she is doing. I mean, she is playing politics because we have a pandemic. That is Pelosi's way, and that is wrong.
Congressman Kevin McCarthy, House Minority Leader, we thank you very much, Congressman, for being with us. Thank you very much. And stay well.